Hey guys, it's Christina Selena reporting from two parts of the world.
And today we're going to be referencing this book called 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School by Matthew Frederick. We will be highlighting some key concepts from this book.
So, the first concept that we thought was really important was a partie is the central idea or concept of a building. So, the reason why this is so important is whenever you do architecture or like design a building or design a space, you have to kind of fight for why you're doing that, or every decision that you've made, you have to convince somebody that it's a good decision. And when you have like one overall like diagram that explains like the whole building, like the reason why you've made these moves, it kind of organizes and also helps the viewer or the person that's critiquing you understand why you've made these decisions.
hmm
Um,
Yeah,
so
it's pretty much like the big picture and the big idea of like the starting point of your project.
yeah. So like I guess this is like one of the first things you after you do your research you would say like, oh, based on the research and like the surrounding site, the massing of this building should be this or this, and you have like a diagram explaining like why that is. Or if like you do a lot of research and you find the circulation really important, then you would have like a main circulation diagram like, oh, based on my research, like this is the partie that fits my site or my building.
hmm
Um, Yeah, so this is like one of the most important things I think to know like quite early on in your architecture career, because if you're not convincing about like all the design moves you've done, people are like you're going to have like bad critiques every
hmm
time.
So the following page actually goes a little bit more in depth about like the partie. I didn't. We're not showing this slide, but it says partie derives from understandings that are non-architectural and must be cultivated before architectural form can be born. So I just want to be clear that a partie is like the big idea, but it's not necessarily like an architectural idea. Like it could just be the big concept of like you know of anything really that you want, like that it's like the impression that you want to like have your viewers of the building. I'm trying to think of an example. What's a good
It's really
example?
hard to explain because it's like so broad. Like, well, I guess like the examples that they show here is like maybe it's like you have like a radial scheme with like one missing point, or like the pure shape and all the odd shapes coming in. Like it's super
Mm-hmm.
simple, but like having this to start like base your whole project off will make like your design decisions in the future like super easy, and like you know what you're doing, I guess.
Right.
Oh, itchy.
And just to be clear, we both have extreme allergies, so we're not sick. We're just
I feel like
sniffling.
we're gonna have to like explain this every video for the next few months.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, so the next one we want to talk about is the two most important keys to effectively organizing a floor plan are managing solid void relationships and resolving circulation. Which, so if you watched our diagramming videos, it's funny because in a way we're kind of working backwards, right? Because the floor plan's already there, but we're identifying solid voids and like the circulation. And that just goes to show that even after a floor plan is completed, like you can trace your steps backwards to like how important these were in shaping the space.
Like if you've seen our Zaha diagramming exercise, I think that's like a really clear one that we did a lot of talking about the solid and voids. So a lot of the solids are like the cores, like vertical circulation, toilets, and stuff like that. So you want to resolve like those things because like you don't want like two sets of staircases next to each other or something. So like by law, you kind of have to have them for like far apart from each other. So
Mm-hmm.
once you know that you need like certain like you have certain regulations, then you start to form your building like you form the solid and then kind of form the voids to like balance that out. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like circulation, that's like super important because if you looked at our diagramming for Mizile, there the circulation was like the most important, where they like really wanted to bring people to the top. And maybe this is like the very first idea they had while like conceiving this project, but even at the end, that's still like the most evident like aspect of that building was the circulation.
Right. So something that I don't think I actually saw in this book. Well, in this book they did talk about what you were saying with like it's important to start off designing with like having stairs at opposite ends of the building. So by code it's actually like 1/3 of the diagonal calculation. Well, it depends on like sprinklers and stuff like that, but that's like the common uh, rule, the 1/3 the distance. Some like one of the first questions that they ask you when you start architecture school is like, what do you think like an architect does? And everyone's like, oh, we design things, or like, oh, blah 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 blah, right? So like the actual answer is we're held responsible for getting people out in case of a fire. So like that's why it's really important to like shape our core spaces and then shape our program around that, because the most important thing is when your building is on fire that people can get out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the really important thing I was trying to say.
So something that I think really affects like me personally in terms of like what kind of architecture I want to do is like suburban buildings are freestanding objects in space, and urban buildings are often shapers of space. So I prefer to do urban architecture just for that reason. Like I don't enjoy as much creating an object in space. I'd rather create space, if that makes sense. So I think that's like a huge difference. Like if you do more like suburban architecture or something, it's just like a landscape and then boop, you're building. But then in urban architecture, you really have to think about like how the building reacts with the street, or if you want to have like a plaza, or if you want to have like a gathering space, or some buildings don't want that space, don't want people like loitering in front of their building. So it's just like flat. So like I feel like there's so many things that have to be worked out that are like urban planning things, but that architects need to do as well and consider.
I think it's true. Like urban buildings are often shapers of space. So like so like in this image, as you can see right here, it's like a medieval city plan. However, like you know, we like in Philadelphia, we have like what do they call that? Like
a grid plan, not organic.
Yeah, but we
plan.
have a grid plan. But then there's the thing down the middle, the art museum. The city beautiful movement.
Yeah.
So there's the city beautiful movement, and then where it's basically like a gridded city, but then there's this big diagonal that cuts through it from like one center point of the city to like to the other part, and there's like a straight view. So I think that even though in this image that it shows the medieval city, that keep in mind that urban buildings can shape can take shape in many different shapes. Like urban planning can take shapes in many different forms. Yes.
I remember one of our professors used to always say that if you want to make like a lasting impact on like the world, don't be an architect, be an urban planner. Because like once you put a road there, that road's gonna be there for like forever. Or if you like change the circulation of a space, it's like really hard to break that pattern. So like if you create like a walkthrough like from here to here or something, people are gonna always like once that becomes a habit, it's really hard to take that away again. So that's like your mark on the city.
The next one is talking about like anchor placements. So careful anchor placement can generate an active building interior, and I think that is very true, that you have to be strategic with like, let's say you want to celebrate like a central staircase, right? So like building around that or highlighting that can be like a really impactful moment, such as like in our previous diagramming video, Mizile, right?
Yeah.
Mizile. Okay. Mizile. Like they had this beautiful like structure, rectum moment, and the stairs was right next to it, right? So like in this case, the stairs wasn't the anchor, but the structure was, right? but having them next to each other just like uplifted the whole moment.
An example that a lot of people can reference is in shopping malls. You have like the two big like main stores, like department stores at the end. And then like to get from one to the other, you have to like stop by all, like you don't have to stop by, but you like pass by all these little shops that are probably like less known. So that's kind of like a moneymaker. And so yeah, you just like get people through the whole space rather than like if you had both of these at the like one end and all the little shops on the other end, nobody would visit like the other end, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like strategically placing your program throughout the building to get people as far as possible through the building.
Mm-hmm. They do that in grocery stores too, guys. Be careful with those aisle end caps.
Yeah. Like chips, 3 for $1. What? I don't need that, but okay.
Wait, actually, that literally happened to me the other day when I was on the phone with Selena. I went to Wawa and I picked up a donut, and I felt really like good about it. Like it was like, so they have them individually packed now. So people don't like go into like the shelves and take them out of like, well, it's like a cabinet shelf. And so, it was 99 cents for one, and like I'm about to pay, and I looked to the left, and on the counter there was a box of 6, and I was like, how much is that? Because like I was already out doing an errand, and like at this time right now, like, we're not really going in and out as much at all. So he was like, it's $3.99, and he wasn't that excited. He was just like $3.99. And I was like, $3.99, and I was like, Selena, what do I do? 1 for 99 cents or 6 for $3.99? She's like, 6 for $3.99. And I was like, I want that box. I want that box. Yeah. But
bad influence.
Yeah, careful with that, guys.
So I feel like this one's a bit more specific than the other ones we've had. So they're saying an object, surface, or space will usually feel more balanced or whole when its secondary articulation runs counter to its primary geometry. So basically, if you have like a long, narrow space, your pattern, either if it's on the ceiling or on the floor, should counter that, like be perpendicular to that. Mm-hmm. And rather, like, I guess if you have a long space and you also have like your finishes, like your flooring or something going this way, maybe that's the effect you want, but that's going to make that space like so long. Like it's going to feel a bit uncomfortable, I feel like. Whereas if you if you break it up this way, then it feels like it's still a long space, but it doesn't feel like quite as long, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Like there's just, like you said, there's just breaks in between for your eyes. It's like a visual break. Even though like you still see like the end of like the tunnel, I guess. To have visual breaks like on the way to that, like gives it some diversity and some, what is that called? Some activity, like.
Yeah, so a lot of things in architecture, like you can purposely design a space that makes humans uncomfortable. And I think if you think about like a building where from far away it looks like a 3-story building and you get up close to it and it's like, oh my God, the first story is like 3 stories in one. Like that wasn't really designed for the human eye, and it makes people feel a bit uncomfortable to be up against like this doorway that's 3 times bigger than it should be. So it's just like designing spaces, you can make them feel comfortable or uncomfortable, and I think this is like one of those things that makes people feel more comfortable in the space.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking about comfort, like a little side note, like if you ever wondered why, like when you go to like fast food restaurants, like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's or whatever, and their seats are like really hard, that's because you're not meant to be comfortable. It's because it's a fast food chain and they want you out. Like, what? Right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You learned something today.
Yeah, for sure. There's other design things like, I mean, I guess another like really big design thing that's for discomfort is like park benches when they have like the bar in the middle. So it's like basically 2 sides to the bench. That's like so people don't sleep on the bench. It's like anti-homeless design. So I think like.
And so that people don't skateboard on them. Yeah,
that also. They put like those little ridges on on curbs and stuff also sometimes.
Yeah, that's what they're for, guys.
Yeah, everything it's not there for nothing.
It's not there just to be shiny. So the next one is no design system is or should be perfect. And I think that although this is specifically talking about design systems, it's funny because I think that like you really well I learned this like towards like the end of architecture school just because I'm such a perfectionist that you just have to
She met
accept
me.
and learn that it's not going to be perfect. It's just not. And you just got to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes like if you're trying to like build something like to code or something, you might have like a couple options in like how to achieve that. And sometimes you just have to choose the lesser of the two evils if it's something that you're not. I guess it doesn't even have to be like a code thing. It's just like I think let me think of a good example. In a recent project that I worked on with like a hospital, right? So they in hospitals they want all rooms to be the same size, like all the similar types of rooms, like the same type of room to be the same size. That's because and like the location of everything on the same wall, like this is on the right wall, that's on the left wall, so that whichever nurse or doctor goes into the room, they always know where everything is, like so that when things need to be done quickly, they don't have to think like, oh shoot, this is a different room, so like it's somewhere else, right? So there was these rooms on the ends that we couldn't have more than a 20 foot corridor, like a dead end corridor. So we had to make those rooms ever so slightly smaller, which isn't ideal. But the other solution was to make them into suites where there was a doorway to get into this whole like section, and these doorways were interrupting our designs. So we got rid of it and we took the lesser of the two evils basically, and we made the end rooms a little bit smaller. That's a good example, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also think like when you're designing like more of a school project, so like at the first, this kind of like goes full circle. So say you made your partie and like your rule is such and such, like whatever it may be, and you get to a point where like you can't like it's not possible to follow that rule. Like to break that rule one time makes that element so much more important. So like if you are gonna break your rule, then like choose a good place to do it, I guess.
You might as well celebrate
And
it.
yeah, exactly. And then like that becomes your like highlight, your like
Yeah.
statement piece, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have some more concepts because this book has 101 of them, although we're not talking about all 101 of them.
Yeah.
We will be talking about a few more in our next video.
Yes, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
So let us know what you think, and if you like this video, hit like.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.